Hello. Welcome to episode 7 of the End of the Beginning podcast. In this episode, we chat about life as an unlimited being, expansion through uncomfortability, and problems as an invitation. We discuss playing a role versus the power of actually connecting to self and putting an eye on the horizon, metaphorically speaking. We hope you enjoy what you hear, and if you'd like to submit any questions for upcoming episodes, please contact us at theendofthebeginningpodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Instagram. Thanks for listening.
So this is one of those ones where we brainstorm and we hold it lightly in a practical way, but the thread will reveal itself.
Yeah, I hope so.
And so to me, there's sort of two parts to us. There's all the convention we were built with, like the world's survivalism orientated, and it's scary. We want to do it right. We want to do it cost effectively. We want to do it in a way we don't double handle. And there's a whole other way, which is like, actually, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to see what I'm inspired about, see what my preference is, hold as much steadiness and beauty and relationship and love as I can in a given moment or in across a period of time, as often as I can. And then something in the mystery will reveal itself. And closing the gap between a life where we're living from a very human space and we're trying to integrate more and more spirituality. I identify as that coming from that template a lot. It's like I'm living this full life, married, kids, job, mortgage, ticking the boxes, and trying to have the healthiest EQ in my life that I can have and have the most, not leaving the door open, but then actively recruiting spiritual practice to spiritualize all these things as much as I can. And maybe that template of like living a full human life and trying to integrate spiritual purpose in there as much as how do I get this from being a weekend retreat that I did to a thing that is connected and intertwined with every human breath that I take as I move through life. And this is one of those things, is stepping out of survivalism and stepping into what you might call deep surrender, but what I relate to in a felt way more as energetic. So not so much deep surrender to what's going on, but like a co-creative participation. How do I keep my energy open and loving, which can directly conflict with safety sometimes. It's like, it's really hard to keep my heart open when I'm scared of there not being enough money to pay the bills this month, or
being judged.
Or what if we make a podcast and we don't do a vodcast component and we just sit in some fledgling D+ category that no one's interested in because we didn't do what the big boys are doing or something like that, right? Which is just a concept floating around, except for the emotional layer in which it shuts the heart down, because that's not a heart-opening way to hold what we're up to here. And it may take us away from our core business, which is the most authentic Luke, the most authentic Paul. What happens when we splash those into the middle and how they enhance and amplify one another. Notice I excluded the word lather.
We've had a chat about that.
Yeah, so do you feel that one? Like, how do I surrender to my own creativity? How do I coexist with this stuff without defaulting to fear?
I feel like there's still a component of activity that needs to be engaged with, because otherwise I feel I'm just in passivity.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of goes to the conversation we were having yesterday,
Yep.
Just about me trying to move some of the things forward in my life that are kind of stuck at the moment. And I feel like I need to, it's that thing, I guess it's materialism a little bit, like I'm in the material world. I feel like that's my, like we often talk about balancing the human and the spiritual. I feel like that doesn't go away in this space. I don't get to just be a spiritual.
It can feel like an over-spiritualization.
Yeah, I feel like I can't just be a spiritual being and being like, I'm going to manifest everything, and then I open my eyes and there's like a big house on the hill. Someone hands me some keys, like I feel like there's a human component to that that I have to honor, which is actually, and it could even be signaling the universe that's like, yes, this is the way forward for me, and yes, see how much energy I'm putting to it, or see how much I'm trying to, can you help me please, kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of lack, it just comes from a place of expanding into somewhere new in both parts of my being.
Yeah.
Like in that kind of higher self, but also in the incarnated.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I honor the perspective. That how do we honor, in my language, fully online humanistically and fully online spiritually, so neither is left out in the cold, and somehow both are welcomed in fully, and yet we allow for an oscillation between the two, because you do have like maybe a really expansive spiritual moment where anything's possible, and then a really visceral human moment where you're really in feeling, or you're really in something visceral, like a bodily something. And certainly human relationship has such thick human experiences in there, where you're experiencing the way your nervous system responds to another person. Let's say this is play, offering something in the esteem of let's play with this. How does action meet that spiritual orientation, that spiritual undertone of this is what I really want to create? I understand that. I guess we've launched into a dialogue about manifestation. I understand that I'm an unlimited being, and that therefore whatever vibrational posturing I adopt, the universe will follow in material form. So if I'm very clear that I'm going to manifest my dream partner or $1 million cash in the next 6 months, just noting like some of those, the challenge of to have a spiritual dialogue and say things like $1 million cash, and how that can feel like a vivid juxtaposition sometimes. Just sitting in that discomfort and wondering, I wonder if these are layers that can melt away inside of me. Very clear that God has no judgments about these things. That feels off. That would be the case. Do you follow that? Do you know what I mean about like how
I would have, but I believe that. I believe that.
Oh yeah, so
there's no judgment.
So I'm getting a little lost here, but if you wanted to, so I'm going to adopt the posture of that level of wealth, and if we really pull it apart and granulate it, what we notice is that parts of ourselves, if I'm going to say things like, I got $1 million in my pocket, it calls up and out perhaps some of our personality layerings that are like, what? No, you don't. Or you didn't earn that. Or that's too much to ask for. Let's start with something more modest. Whatever. Resistances, flows of resistance or an inhibition to flow arise. So the overarching principle is like, in order to easily manifest $1 million, it's got to feel like it's already happened. More specifically, to feel like if you're infinity and everything's in you already, you're tapping into the part that already has that, normalizing it, attuning it, letting it feel every cell of your body. So the universe has no choice but to respond, as if the universe is checking in with you and going, where's your vibrational constellation at? Oh, cool. And then photocopies that forward into material form. If we said we were going to manifest $2,000, it might be like, cool. If we said 200 grand, it might be like, whew. If we said 20 million, it might be like, holy shit, that would change everything. So there's an escalation of how much that would change our reality. And therefore, like, our vibrational relationship to that shifts, where all of a sudden we're in awe of it. Now, in order to normalize, you can't really normalize awe. You could argue that you could, but really you would then be inspired. If you normalize something that was awe-inspired to you, like standing at top of the mountain, to normalize that and make it pedestrian and everyday, which is the goal, you would then create relatively greater goals out in front of you, larger mountains to climb. And that's the healthiness of growing within your own infinity. There's naturalness and beauty in that. So if we were going to normalize what it was to manifest what we might consider a really large sum of money, like striking, stunning, maybe overwhelming, to be able to breathe steadily in the presence of that, to be able to relate to it as an equal, really, where it's actually not it's beautiful, but it's not overwhelming. From a oversimplified perspective, like standing in front of if you're a straight dude standing in front of a supermodel and not being overwhelmed by her beauty, enjoying it, but not being like, oh, it's so bright I can barely stand in the room, let alone relate to her as a human being of simple beauty underneath it, whose heart just wants to be seen and understood like everybody else's. Instead, it's so radiant, I have to squint, and so I can't behave like myself. That's like a relative overwhelm to that apparent power. Similarly, swap that out for like $20 million to be able to stand in it and go, hello, I'm comfortable with you. So the way this was in my life was it was something like wanting to manifest wealth felt like wanting to win the lottery. But there are energy signature components to wanting to win the lottery. The way that we relate to that is such that it's like a once-in-a-lifetime experience that is incredibly rare. Certainly, I don't know anybody who's won the lottery in any significant way. I heard a story once, sort of thing. Somebody's cousin sort of vibe. Right, so I came to understand there's like the depedestalization of this sort of stuff. The stuff you want, we've got to take off the pedestal and put it smack in the middle so that we can relate to it as an equal. I hadn't thought about it in terms of equality before that came up just now, but I like that. There's something functional about that. The functionality points to self-worth, to worthiness. I am worthy of my own creativity. It's not a coincidence that the universe has led me to covet these things. It's not cheap, it's not nasty, it's not dilute, it's not facile. It's my own creativity moving out ahead of me. And you'll know when it's inspired, when it feels really beautiful. And more and more every day giving ourselves permission to feel inspired without all the judgments, like you mentioned weeks ago, like you can be wealthy and do good in the world. There's something about being wealthy in lots of areas, being wealthy in emotional and spiritual health so you can overflow that cup onto the people that you love. We really feel into that in the here and now. That is a beautiful way to be in the world. To uplift our children, to uplift our spouses, to be additive, to be greater than the sum of our parts as a collective. Money's no different. It doesn't exist outside of that. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird systems and power grabs and all that, but that happens in human relationship too. There's dark aspects to all that as well. There's about 17 tangents injected into the one thing, but yeah, it started off with talking about where's action then? Where is action? So I could delete the last 15 minutes or however long that was and come back to take action. Take action. See what vibrational state you're in when you go to take action, because the action can only be resonant with the vibrational state you're in the moment. So let's get expanded and then act. Let's take care of ourselves as well as we can so we're deeply connected to our heart, and then we act. And the results must be different.
Yeah, I feel like one of the mechanisms you can be called to expand is through uncomfortability, And for me, like that, you get to a point where you're so uncomfortable, you have to change something. And so you have to do something.
Yeah.
And I think as long as it's done mindfully, I always feel like, whether this is right or wrong, I always feel like the universe, if you ask it, will open a whole bunch of doors and windows, and your part of the contract is to just go, yes. Wow, that's a big door. That's pretty scary. Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like...
to work with.
Yeah, I feel like that's the doing part. The doing part is like, all right, it's time to be courageous. Your part of the contract is saying yes to the doors that open. Your part of the contract is saying yes to thinking big, to thinking, I'll give it a go, or expanding out into an uncomfortable space because you're going into something that's new or whatever it is.
See, I haven't heard any action yet, really, like subtleties of like.
Well, for me, it is because
following
the action part of it is when the opportunity comes along, you say yes. When the inspiration strikes you, you say yes.
When the inspiration strikes
but it could be things like, you put a few calls out and one comes back and you're like, that was the one that I was expecting. It's a bit outside my wheelhouse, but all right, let's go and do it. Yeah. And whether that is, changing vocations, or whether it is digging in to find what your dream is and moving towards that, like whatever your dream job is.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the kind of, for me, that's the part of the contract where it is spiritual, but there's also then a component of it that you have to honor, which is when those moments come. Like, I can't remember who said it, but someone, maybe it was you. It's just like, money is coming towards me in many and various different ways, and I don't need to know how it's coming. I just know it's coming. And it's like, okay, well, that's a pretty cool idea. But what if it's coming through this avenue where you're like, I don't want to do that, There's all those kind of things that I think about as well.
Right. Well,
which is not to get too stuck in money, but it's just, obviously,
it's
one that a lot of people kind of are playing with.
Of course. I think this is the world, like resourcing. It's how we shore up our human stuff, how we take care of what our body, our nervous system requires, so that we can create and explore the world with freedom. So that's how they get to that point of like money equals freedom, freedom equals money. There's all sorts of different layers about how you get the man off your back. That's how you develop freedom from, family blocks and, heavy family history or heavy spousal, whatever. But at its core, I don't know, it's part of the creative process. It's a beautiful part of the creative. It always has been, even before, something more bartery and something more ancient but still human. Maybe that's the definition of ancient. They're all human, aren't they? There's been exchange. To build the house, you needed the wood. To feed the village, you needed the water and the crop or whatever. So resourcing is resourcing, and it's okay. Where does it come from in your mindset? You talk a lot about perspective. What's your perspective on the origin of these things? So when you talk about, I think there are threads of inspiration, and we'd have to break down what that actually means. To me, that implies getting quiet enough to actually hear it. And sometimes it's a massive punch in the face, and sometimes it's just like, it's fine, just go left. And you're like, what does it feel right going like? A bit repellent. Okay, that's enough for me. There is a real momentum that can gather in that, the minutiae of that, in that deliberation, in sitting in the quiet. Yes, we descend under our mind and we descend into something feeling orientated, but sometimes there's a bunch of emotion there or whatever. But if we really meet that, then there's a layer below that too. So underneath mind and underneath heart, you might say, underneath an emotional processing layer, there's some sort of emptiness, but there's no such thing as emptiness. And so what's in that? I would advocate or assert that that's the poleness. And then what's the poleness say? The poleness is very steady, like the ocean depths underneath the tumultuous waves, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, whatever. That core, that depth, is very dependable, very available. Maybe very available's not fair to say. It's always there. When we're in deep pain, it feels less available, but it's a constant in its way. And when we can tap into it, perhaps intermittently, because of getting lost is a totally human part of it. And this dialogue that's possible there between, say, human self and deeper self, and where do we go next? It's not sponsored by confusion. Clarity is invaluable. I'm not asserting we should all be clear all the time. It's not how it works. It rains, it's windy, it's sunny. The full spectrum of human states are there. But if abundance is part of our nature, so is well-being, and so is clarity. And so to know, to go, I I know this is the right thing, is as powerful a state as there is. And it's got nothing to do with wealth or the provisioning of profound human relationship or having the right teacher or being the right teacher or whatever it is. Just being clear. I know. I feel so steady in this. And we know, I think you and I both know, that that has nothing to do with the arrogance of asserting that over another. In fact, it's the opposite. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. And the most powerful cats in the world can then be the quietest, except when they're not. Except when that inspiration says, have a voice here. Say something, do something. That's what's covetous about it all. The kind of power that needs no other variable to line up. Because that implies it's already there. And when we can sync up with that, it's amazing, because you're like, wow, the world, I have no notes on the universe. I have no notes. It doesn't need shifting on any front. I feel fully connected to myself, even if it's for 2 seconds. It's 2 seconds of, I don't know, 2 seconds of completely nourishing well-being. And if we dare ourselves to explore what complete means in a feeling way, in hearing that or whatever, in me saying it, what does complete well-being feel like? Like we're 4-year-old children and a teacher's inviting us to have an imagination game. If you check in with your heart, what does complete well-being feel like? Yeah, so maybe this dialogue's about the quality of action. Where is this action coming from?
Do you mean that as a quality control perspective? Like, are you doing it out of, I've got to do something, out of fear and out of panic? Or are you doing it out of you're inspired, your heart is open, you're excited?
Well, and another layer, either in between or more towards the former that you just offered, was out of frustration. I feel frustrated with the way that things are. And so I hear in that from the outside looking in that perhaps we're going to generate more frustration. All the human emotions are welcome. They're all going to bring us closer to what we want. Anger's a beautiful thing. You could say anger inspires a deeper connection with peace on the back end and inserting a vibrational contrast. I think that's true. I think that totally will. Anger is also a powerful truth seeker. When we feel angry in a community or angry in a relationship or angry in a dynamic with ourselves, it's like this is untrue. There is something truer than this. And I'm moving towards it. It's like trying to jam a triangle into a circle hole and going, this isn't supposed to fit. This doesn't fit. This isn't right. There's a better way. Which is just saying this is out of alignment with the core of my energy signature. And you could say that's deeply personal in its way. That process is deeply personal. And so I'm saying that, where are we starting this action from? What's the motivation? Where is it? What state are we in when we're reaching it out? When we're reaching out? And if it's from I can't sit in this, it's too frustrating. It's not an ideal place to create from. It's a little bit like the Einstein-ism, no problem was ever solved from a problem vibration, from a problem mindset. It's no longer a quote when I'm shifting the language all over the place. That's not how you perform it. That's not how you execute a quote. That's not how you quote somebody. You find a solution from a solution vibration. So the invitation is to walk away. I've identified the problem. I can't problem solve from problem identification, or I can't problem solve from a problem vibration. So the invitation is to step away, find something solution orientated, not the specific solution, but as a way of holding it, intrigue, curiosity, wonderment, standing with it. You might need to decompress the feeling in order to get there. In fact, you probably always do.
Well, I find the problem is actually an invitation to something.
Yeah, that would be the curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, it invites you to go, so what's up with what you're doing? How are you feeling about everything right now, and how you, and if you dare to dream about your life being as big as you can imagine it, what does that look like? The problem invites me to do that. generally. Not always, but generally, and particularly recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being invited to go, what is your biggest, most helpful, excited self look like? Because if you are at a turning point or a fulcrum, why would you pivot to something like me? Wouldn't you pivot to something that's like, wow, that would be amazing? And just slowly start chipping away at that.
Yeah. Can you unpack that a little? I feel like I only half understand it.
Well, so again, perspective based.
Yeah.
Like the problem can be, the bump in the road, and it's like you can just look at the problem like a giant boulder and get frustrated and angry at it, and overwhelmed by it. Like there's a whole bunch of things you can do.
Yeah.
But one of the things you can do is be excited by, well, I can't go this way anymore because this giant boulder's in the way. So I've got to make a new road. And so where do I want to go? And if I want to go, somewhere, should I make it somewhere that really inspires me and excites me and fills me up? And so then you start to dream about what your, expanded, beautiful, wonderful, amazing, how dare I dream this for myself. And then for me, then you go about the best way you can, staying inspired and executing whatever it needs to be for you to, at your current understanding, head towards that.
Yeah. What comes up for me in that...
Because I think you might have actually given me that analogy where it's like, I was like, I'm being forced to. It might have been you. It was you or one of my close friends. And they were like, well, you're also being invited. It might have been Will. You're being invited to, if you like to think of it that way as well. And I was like, oh, that's a way more productive.
Invited to step into
being forced to
challenging dynamic circumstance with the boulder.
Yeah, so like for me, like the music industry and the part of the music industry that I have been involved in, AI is very prevalent and is starting to rattle a lot of cages.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, oh, okay, well, you're probably going to have to pivot out of this. Also, chasing work and stuff is not really something that I'm a big proponent of. I don't, it's like talking about myself, funnily, talking about it on a podcast, but like big upping my skills or, whatever.
Yeah, self-promotion marketing.
Self-promotion thing is not really my vibe. And so the conversation I was having was, I'm kind of being forced to work out, and it's like, well, you're also being invited. And so again, that was just it wasn't mine, but it was a beautiful, reframe of the same situation, but again, providing a inspired perspective rather than one that's in lack,
Oh, something invigorating and nourishing and provisioning that comes up in me listening to that. And it's like, how beautiful it is to be in the process in the right way. And right infers some sort of moral stigma or whatever. I don't mean that, but in the aligned way, in the way that Paul gets to be close to Paul, that Luke gets to feel like himself while he's doing it, as in tapped into that well-being at the underneath the tumultuous surface of the ocean, tapped into that steadiness, tapped into the fun. There's fun in that. There's love in that. And so do I... if a professional surfer, do they surf to win the trophies or do they surf to surf? And both's okay. It's like, I'm not here to win the trophy. I love the process of doing this. I think that is the opportunity for every human being. In fact, I think that's our birthright. So to be able to work with boulders in a loving way, and stuff will come up, but making it more and more about finding the flow within that. So I didn't invent this. That it's used in many different spaces in spiritual discourse, but moving downstream in the river.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Like, because the idea, I don't know, when you were talking about the surfing analogy, I was kind of like, yeah, I guess the winning of the trophy and therefore the prize money just facilitates the ability to do more of what you love doing, which is surfing.
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
You can go to more comps, you can enter more comps, you can...
Yeah, totally. Well, let's spread, because we're not talking about surfing, we're talking about living, we're talking about pauling.
Sure.
So Paul gets to, say, well, it'd be so perfect if I could just be expanded all the time, I'd just be pauling all the time. You're like, sure. But that's not what this space is about. This space has ups, downs, lefts, rights, fast, slow, pain. What's the opposite of pain?
Pleasure. Wow.
I was looking for, my brain wanted to say opioid. which is revealing.
Not of your addiction, of your previous...
Not of my heroin days, but of
your previous occupation.
So we're pulling. So how do we find bliss in the pulling? And some of that's the push and pull. So that's when you welcome in the discomfort with curiosity. But how do we move downstream with this? So am I in the perfect spot? The universe thinks you are. And somehow that's never not the case. God's never not excited for where you are. But there's also infinite compassion in that as well for the process, because it's so authentic. There's no suki lala status. There's no too much sensitivity to God, because it understands exactly where you've come from. It understands every step you've walked better than any other human being, and perhaps better than you have. There's no judgment there. There's no impatience. Ram Dass got this beautiful quote, like, we can wait. The universe can wait. There is no rush. There's no rush for your family member who frustrates the shit out of you to wake up to what you're waking up to and share this journey with you. Share the only truth that you can see that matters. It is so paramount. It is so beautiful and important. But there is also no rush. What's the rush? For another to wake up. And
you literally read my mind then. Like when you said, there is no rush for someone else to wake up, but there is excitement
for the awakening of another.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there
like,
can be,
and then it becomes self-enjoyment. You know, like you enjoy the either being part of the facilitation or just even the observation of that playing out is such a. Even if it's tiny, it's all. I find anyway.
We know that there's crew who that's not going to happen for anytime soon.
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would be so bold as to.
Well, let's rephrase it.
But do you know what I mean? Like some people who that cat seems to be well asleep. Yeah, like they're really enjoying that slumber, and I get it. And then next, you don't see him for 6 months, and then you're like, wow, this is a different. Like I've had that with a friend of mine who I was really close to for a long time, and the transformation has didn't see him for a few years, and then the transformation's enormous.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, oh wow, I really do care about this person, and I'm really happy for their expansion. They just got so miserable that it was enough. It was enough of a catalyst, to just go, I've got to find something.
I think there is irrefutable beauty in celebrating the growth of another, and also in the humility of not presuming someone's arc or the rate they're moving at. Of course, there's so much mystery, but there's also moments where I would say it's also beautiful to give somebody the sovereignty, not that they require it from you, but in your universe to say, I honor you where you're at, the natural pace of this for you.
Yeah.
And really to be able to do that in an ever expanding 360-degree way where you're doing it more and more in all the corners of your life. Is welcoming in with curiosity and enthusiasm this process that the universe is provisioning you, supplying you with, which is to say, gifting them sovereignty grows you because you're able to stand more steadily in accepting them exactly as they are. Not from a philosophical, I read it on a bumper sticker, this is what traditional Buddhism would require of me, is to just accept. But I can actually feel the beauty.
Yeah, your own.
In letting that flower grow in the most natural way possible. The beauty, and yes, it's beautiful, but the reason that it's beautiful is because there's power in it. The reason there's power in it is because you're aligning with the universe's perspective. So the universe makes no mistakes, and you just synced up with it in that moment where you're like, I authentically, every cell in my being is celebrating this person the way that they are. And sometimes that might include they might be an alcoholic, or they might, something yucky. And it's okay that it's yucky. And so what that implies is that you've created the energetic distance from that and the appropriate boundings around your soft underbelly and the people that you are responsible for. So you've given, there's an alcoholic in the family and it's persistent, and you've tried whatever intervention, and now you're like, okay, well, the only other path is to now create a partial withdrawal so that I can hold this issue at arm's length and keep my, let's say, my soft I'm thinking of heart, but keep my core protected so I can persist for another day. So I can remain, because I'm no use to anybody if I'm falling over with overwhelm for somebody else's problem. If I step into a crisis and become a victim of the crisis or whatever.
Is this through empathy, do you think? Like through being an empath? I mean, I know it gets overused, but this is through like...
Overexposure?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's any time you're in human relationship, you are getting to refine and practice the right distance. How does Paul help Luke without Luke's problems becoming Paul's problems?
But is that a skill that we all need to endeavour to master?
But it probably goes both ways. This is this like paradox, this spectrum of extreme on one end is too much self-orientation, which is understood as narcissism, and extreme codependency on the other end, and the middle is actually the right amount.
Yeah.
I love myself in,
the balance,
such a beautiful way, and in the interest of that love, I want to be able to relate exquisitely, or I want to be able to relate healthfully. And to do that, I've got to have a really healthy consideration of other. I would assert that it's no greater than 49%, because we have the most sensitivity to self, because no one else can understand the journey that you've walked and what you go through every day in the beauty and in the arduousness. So just 51%, whatever, and then having the rest we reserve for empathy. So self-sensitivity and sensitivity to other. I forget how we go into that.
But just further to that, I do have a very good friend who's a heavy drinker, and he is so inspiring to be around that it's a strange dichotomy. Like he's doing this thing to himself that he knows is not good for him, but when we hang out, it's so inspiring for both of us. I believe. And so it's an interesting thing because I don't feel in lack, even though he's in a space of discomfort and in pain and is medicating his pain through the drug of alcohol. It doesn't affect me because, and this goes to what you say, I don't put myself in that place when he's doing that. It's a bit like if your friend was a junkie, you might make really great music together in a band, but you don't shoot up when they're off shooting up, like.
Yeah, so you
which happens a lot.
Coexist with his process.
Yeah,
without judgment.
Yeah,
but without over involvement either.
Yeah,
I guess it's like, but if he was your actual brother,
yeah,
which implies this isn't Paul's brother we're talking about. And Paul may or may not have a brother. What?
It's like some sort of Mission Impossible. Like,
should you choose to accept it?
We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Next episode.
If there's more proximity and
yes,
more like momentum in you that if you're not problem is your problem.
Yeah. If you're not able to distance and get some space away from them in their negative, like in their negative state, then of course.
Right. So if it was one of our children that was having some sort of, like childlike version of that, then you're not going to sit and create. It's going to be a lot harder to just sit in spaciousness and go, this is a them thing, not a me thing, but I'm here to support it. Yeah. Because they're, in a very human way, like a mammal, like your little baby monkey, they're dependent on us, right? Their nervous system and their body is actually, in a real way, objectively dependent upon us for a period of time. And yet, on an ethereal, spiritual level, no one's dependent on anybody. They're drawing in the circumstances for them to grow. But I would argue that part of that implies that they've got a certain kind of parent that's innately going to provide a certain kind of energy in their life, like provisioning. I keep saying provisioning a lot today. So yeah, if we shift it a little bit, all I'm saying is that those scenarios with more dependency and therefore more exposure of the container, then it's going to be trickier to work through, but the gains will be even more. Because that will require it'll show you some wobbliness, in which I can't live in a world where my child's suffering like this. And we've both, a personal note here, found ourselves, and maybe every parent does, found ourselves in a moment where this is unacceptable. The level of suffering my child's going through is unacceptable. I will make change. I must make change. And then you can't fix the problem. You can help, you can buffer it, you can take action that may soothe us, because doing nothing might be the most excruciating thing. But you're sitting in the middle of this process going, I cannot extinguish this process. I cannot excise it and take it away. I'm going to have to coexist with it. And that coexisting, I assert, and I think is very plain, grows us to a different kind of creature.
Yeah.
I can't take my child's pain away. I can create a space for it to aid them processing it, but I can't take it away. That's very different to being able to comfortably hold space in a steady way for your parent. For a friend, for somebody a little more peripheral. So I think it's really, this is what it is to relate. This is the incarnation we took, to be very human, and then to be inspired to go and make babies as well, as an example, but to have a spouse, whatever. It does come to mind, like, if it's perpetual and there is no absolute mastery, you don't go to the gym one day, get jacked and never go again. It's perpetual. And so swinging between, do I care too much? Do I care too little? Where's the sweet spot? I want to care as much as I possibly can without losing contact with myself.
Yeah.
And that feels like a really big thing to me.
It's the balance, isn't it? Like, everything always comes back to balance for me. Where have you put too much energy? Where have you not put enough energy? And
how do you know? How do you detect in your life what imbalance feels like moment to moment?
I think you have to hone your intuition on it. I don't think you're given, this is where the center is, man. Just legs either side of that and you'll be fine. I think it's more, it becomes a nuance. Like, I drank too much in my 20s and I knew I was drinking too much. And now I don't drink at all, and I haven't drunk for a couple of years. And I feel like, have we discussed that thing, like sitting when I was sitting in or standing in the bathroom?
I think so.
This is just one of my own theories, where I was standing in a bathroom and it had like a concrete, but one of those polished kind of Greekish kind of, concrete floors with all the flecks in it and stuff. Who cares?
I do.
And I'm standing there. It was in the middle of the night, and I just into the bathroom washing my hands, and I stood there long enough that the concrete pulled all the heat out of my foot to warm itself up. But it didn't keep pulling and pull all of the heat out of my foot. It just pulled to an equilibrium where my foot and the concrete beneath my foot was in balance.
Yep.
And I had this thought of, like, is everything here about balance, perhaps? Like, everything is trying to reach equilibrium.
Yeah.
I think there's a physics concept called entropy, where everything's trying to reach its own natural, most efficient state. And yeah, I think it's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
That everything's about balance. If you're joyless because you're too, prescript in the fun things in life, and you're too, you've withdrawn, then you're in lack. And then obviously if you overindulge, then you'll have, remnants of that playing out in your body, whether it's, you start to gain weight, or you get cirrhosis of the liver. Yeah. So everything seems to be about balance. And I think that that can speak, that goes back to a topic we talk about a lot, which is the spiritual bypass thing.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're not in balance, you will bypass things. And if you're too heady, you will dissociate. That's the more kind of bodily version of spiritual bypass, I guess.
Yeah. What came up for me in that moment is if we're drifting too much into the density and the viscera, becoming a bit too human, becoming a bit too survivalist, it might even be a bit too feeling orientated, a bit too relationship dependent, that kind of thing, like drifting into these very human layers and going too far that way. This would be the anti-bypass. Then that would be out of balance in the human direction. But the other direction being too spiritually oriented, nothing really here matters, I can't really be hurt. Let's all just default back to humility. Let's all just default back to, to like we're already abundant in all ways and nothing really matters here, something like that. That's quite disconnected from the human process. And then you're like, well, I'm a spiritual being who came here for a human process. That feels redundant. So what is that middle? And when I say contact with self, so this is if there's an infinite part, and then there's a life itself in physical form part, and then where those two things merge in the middle is where God individuates into a soul, still ethereal, but actually playing out the illusion of separateness in a really vivid way. That's the middle ground. So the absolute midpoint is Paul. The absolute midpoint is Luke, or insert whomever at any point in the journey. That's the midpoint. So if you wanted to avoid bypass into too much humanity and density, or bypass into too much ethereal who gives a fuck, then the middle would be self. And so of course the next thing to say is it behooves us to work out what that is. And it's maybe that's the point. Why is that hard to define sometimes? There's a difference between playing out a role of Luke or Paul or whomever and actually feeling connected to it. And the reason I say it's easy to talk about it in terms of language and just overlook the depth and the power of that is because I've done a lot of that in my life and not been in contact with the actual Lukeness, that the unbridled power and the deep sensitivity and vulnerability of that, and sitting right in the middle of both. Because if I skip over into the unbridled power a bit too much, I can lose contact with some of the finiteness. Some of the finiteness is some of the individuation, which is all the Lukeness of it, and I miss out on the actual process. There's so much power in my own vulnerability. Yeah.
I think some people will be listening to that going, what the fuck are you guys
exactly.
talking
And
about?
I'm trying really hard to, I don't hear that as criticism in any way. I think that's the point. And who knows, in 5 minutes, a pulse of inspiration might move through. I just think that the fact it sounds vague is data in a way, because we're trying to wrap this deep feeling and knowing with language that it might be conveyed to another. And sometimes that's hard. It's like painting a picture of God and then going, cool, you got all of it. No, you didn't. How beautiful. You didn't. And by pointing to something so exquisite and capturing such an important part of it, but clearly barely touching the surface, you pointed to the fact that it's infinitely deep. And because of that, I feel in contact with the infinity, because we revealed that we couldn't capture it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's outside your scope of possibility.
But by attempting it,
and you're also part
that.
of you're also part of it and part of that process.
And so you got to experience part of your own infinity by revealing what the
limitations
finite part
are.
Yeah. So again, it sounds so abstract, but I think that's the core of what life is: having a vivid dance with finity, with something finite and limited, and what data it brings to the infinite over and over and over. It's like all these little microcosms of that little boy looking into space and going, but it goes, what happens after that? Because, well, it gets bigger again. And yeah, but what's outside that? It gets bigger again. And so we have these moments of pain that we process and we integrate, and it gets bigger again, and it gets bigger again. And as part of the nature of the way that the divine seems to be built is it doesn't get bored of exploring its own landscapes. It's very fun to it.
Well, I think that's what it's doing. it's realized that that's really the only game that it's got left to play.
Yeah.
Or that maybe it's the only game that there ever was to play.
I suspect so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we start the podcast?
Yeah, let's give it a go. Let's see if anything comes out.
Oh, man. Yeah, so do you feel, I don't know, are you present to some of this being quality? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you not?
I'm
not?
present to the fact that I don't, this is what it is. We rock up and it's always different when I listen back to it. And I know that there's crisper ways to explain this, but
I think they happen the way they happen for a reason.
Me too. Like they'd be inauthentic if I was nailing it now, because I'm just showing up as myself.
I don't think you're not nailing it.
Right. Yeah. Excess language and stuff I'm wary of. But I don't know, the juice, as I say it right, the juice is letting it be as it is. This is what I mean by the discernment. If it's not that, if you're not following that thread, don't bother.
Yeah.
But I acknowledge that it's taken me years to trust that to the level that I have, and I still have very far to go.
Yeah.
But there's something about, like, the way that I was, we might use this, the way that I was attempting to manifest wealth was holding it around money comes to me from what I'm being, not from what I'm doing, and trying to integrate more and more of that into my routine and way of functioning in life, and way of making financial decisions, and way of relating to my partner, whatever, if I had one in a certain window of time. But really what we want is to... What I noticed was that there was split energy, and that all the talk was about money comes to me easily and in strange and delightful ways that has nothing to do with how much I work or what I'm doing for work. And then when I'd be offered overtime in my job, I'd take it. I'd take all of it and go, look, money's falling out of the skies. Maybe this is relevant to what you were saying before.
Yeah.
And that I kept doing that and doing that and doing that and go, I've never had this much cash flow on a regular basis. This is really, really nice. And I do love what I do in certain layers of my being. And then I had a burnout. And I don't know, realize is the right word, but all of a sudden it became very clear that I was full of shit, that I was trying to have my cake and eat it too. That the part that was scared to moving into like an apparently less safe, downstream, less holding, less gripping with white knuckles, to let go of that perceived control and flow downstream and let wealth actually come to me in any way, that the universe wanted to fruit it out of the sky. And realizing that I was telling myself that's what I was doing, but stripping myself of energy. There's nothing wrong with working overtime, but it wasn't inspired in a heart way. I wanted to be with my family. I wanted to have an abundance of time. And I was taking away nearly all my spare time to do that and calling it abundance. And the universe goes, yo, that's not it. Look at the cavernous deficit you've left in your nervous system from exhausting yourself. It's not it. But it's my real partner. It's my real lover, the universe. And so I hear you. It hurts too much to do anything but comply. And so I said I'll never do overtime again, and I never did. Within the next 2 months, manifest like 20 grand. And that wasn't through, like really disciplined thinking, like money. It was just shifting energy and just integrating, being willing to let go of it coming from work. And in important ways, nothing's ever been the same insofar as like a phenomenon arises and you work with it in such a way that you allow it to change you. And it's definitely shifted the relationship between hard work and wealth generation. In my system, it's not allowed to come from hard work anymore in that classical grind way. And there was something fierce about that. Like the universe was fierce with me. It kicked my ass. So if this is what you really want, then you must stop this bullshit, this split energy bullshit. It's like it's going to come so easily and as a consequence of what I am, not what I'm doing. And yet I'm doing so much. I'm functioning from doing. I'm way out of balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was something. And things haven't been the same. And it's not like you're just showering in millions of dollars and there's never any anxiety. It's not really about the figures, is it? It's about the anxiety about wealth, about my place in the world. Will I be protected? Is the protection I can flow into my life enough to overflow onto my babies and a woman who might be standing under my umbrella at the time, drawing on that kind of masculine protector archetype. So for me, that the middle vein of that is about an authentic relationship with the universe, like being forced into meeting that moment and making the adjustment.
Beautiful.
Here's a question. What do I do when I notice myself comparing my circumstances or myself with others that I perceive have something that I want? Shall I reread?
No, that's great. Like that's something I struggled with for a very long time. I think for me, there's a person in my life where things had seemingly gone really easy for them, and they'd had lots of support. And being that it was someone that was close to me, it was hard for me to process, how easy they had. I'd perceived how easy they'd had it. And it took me a long time to get to a place where I started to understand that everybody's journey is different for a reason. Everybody has different things happen to them. You happen to life differently. And in that, there's appreciation for you experiencing the things that you experience because you trust that that you're supposed to be experiencing those things. Otherwise, you wouldn't be. Which sounds oversimplification, but for me, I don't equate external. I mean, we've spoken a lot about wealth in the last hour or so, and I don't equate wealth necessarily, financial wealth, with overall wealth, which is something that you touched on as well.
Right.
I think when you compare yourself to somebody else, I'm not sure that that's a healthy thing to do. We all do it, I guess, and it's nice when it's inspiring and it's uplifting and it's challenging you to. But again, what perspective shift can you create inside yourself to rise to that challenge? I'm a twin, so I was kind of raised in that space of like, well, you both have the same thing, and Paul, you have a blue one, and your brother gets a green one, and or
not a pink one,
or not a
in the
pink
70s.
One. But life's not like that. It's really not. It's people are born into families with opportunities and experiences that they never earned, but it goes back to something I said previously. I think it was Ep 4, maybe. One of the ways that I process that and understand that is that I have 7 pieces of a 1 billion-piece puzzle, and I'm not supposed to understand the whole puzzle. My brain, at least, tries to make sense of everything, and I would put money on it that we're sense-making machines. Like we try and make sense of everything. We tell ourselves stories to pass down knowledge and information, and we try and make sense of our surroundings. We try and make sense of our existence. And so the true, I talk about this a lot, I know, but the true superpower that you have is your ability to change your perspective. And the same goes for comparing yourself to other people. I'm at a place in my life where I still look at some people who have a lot, particularly material wealth, and I'm like, that would be sick, because I'm not there yet. But at the same time, I'm now in a place where I haven't been previously, where I'm stoked for them, like genuinely stoked that they're doing that, because that's what they need to do, because that's why they're doing it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. And I believe that as a truth. I think experiencing life as consciousness incarnated in a meat puppet really sedates that part of myself that is in competition with others. Because from my perspective, I am having that experience. But this is just the one that I'm focused into right now. I'm focused into this Paul experience. And that softens that competitive, because I was very competitive as a kid, and it softened that part of me, because I think we all want nice things. I think it's pretty fair to say that, like we all want nice stuff. But we also, too, all don't understand. I mean, some people understand. I'm kind of waffling a bit, but yeah, we all want nice things, but I feel like this could be me pushing up against my belief system, against my understanding of it.
Yeah.
It feels very in line with what we've been talking about. Maybe. Yeah. But I also believe that the universe provides what you need whenever you need it.
Yeah.
And some people need, materialistically financial experience, and some people don't. It also depends on what you're here to learn, I think. Like if one of your things is, maybe one of my things is, I'm here to learn that you can have whatever you want by just being who you are.
Mm.
I suspect that probably is what's going on. And the next few years, I guess, will go on to show that to me, or not.
Well, would you attest that your ability to, I don't know, in a functional way to co-create a better outcome without just hard work, but to realign Tetris blocks inside of you has cultivated better outcome?
That hasn't been my experience of life so far. My experience of life has been, I still have to work hard, but whatever I do, I can enjoy it if I choose to.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That
feel authentic to say?
Yeah. And I feel like I've been very fortunate that anything I've kind of set my mind to, I've been able to do, well, mostly. But I think also having Matthew McConaughey, green lights, having green lights all the time,
sir.
Doesn't learn. Take my shirt off.
Don't say that. Don't say the other one.
It's not gonna. I don't know. Do you not learn anything? There was this really cool. My daughter has a little bit of perfectionism, which is something that I've experienced in my life. And there was this really cool Ed Sheeran interview, the Ginger Ninja, and the guy asked him. He said, you've had all this success. Well, you've had all this success, and you've made all this money, and like what's the thing you've learned from your success? And have I said this already? And he said, nothing. I learned everything from my failures. And so sometimes I think the perspective that failure is wrong is, I think I have mentioned this before, but I think the perspective that it's bad to fail, we really need to get out of that. It's a very old way of thinking. Fail magnificently.
Oh, yeah.
And be okay with that.
Two things came up for me in that. I don't know if I can remember I think you mentioned increasing comfort, the dissolving of discomfort through comparison with other, because you're noticing that, well, I kind of am her. And so what she's able to cultivate into her life, I can experience through her. It's even closer than that. I'm experiencing it as her on some level, and I have contact with that. So that's a poetic and beautiful posturing, but you can feel something real in it that soothes you. The more interesting layer to that, to me, is the difference with getting annoyed that she's got this thing that I don't have and I'm experiencing the lack of this thing. The ability to kind of hold it that way, to me, speaks to an increased connection to yourself. It matters a little less what I do and don't have because I'm connected to myself. If someone would say, like, in that moment, I guess the presumption of why comparison is difficult is that I'm less because they have more. And you experience enough of life and you're like the Ed Sheeran phenomenon, well, even when I've had a lot, it doesn't always result in the expansion and loving connection with life and myself and even others that I covet. The shiny look on the outside doesn't always feel good on the inside, and often not for long enough. Similarly, I'm proud of having gone to shit places because they've grown me, which you infer as well. And also they inform me that I don't actually need to fear the shit places like I used to. It doesn't mean I'm really thrilled about truly nightmarish stuff, but fuck it, I can coexist with that if I have to. It's not weighty enough to impinge on now, because if we've got to go there, we've got to go there. What that, I don't know, speaks in volumes is a connection to self. Whether I'm really high or I'm really low, I'll have me. Whether I've got more than her or less than her, I'll have me. And it is, in a very practical way, really provisioning and resourcing. I said it again. Resourcing. It gives you this thing. And it's not a consolation prize. I used to struggle with the difference in consolation and constellation. It's not a constellation prize.
No, it definitely
it's
isn't.
It's not an arraignment of stars. No, it's definitely not that.
The other thing that it made me think about was there seems to be, at every level, if you don't keep it in check, and I guess this is alluding to the balance thing, there is something at every level to make you feel like you need more. So you get the big house, but you don't have the car. And so you get the big house and the car, and then you feel pretty good about yourself until Steve-O rocks up and he's just bought a plane. And
that he drives on the freeway. Obnoxious.
Asshole.
I was still driving cars, are you?
Boring.
I remember that.
I remember that. And then there's, the boat, and then there's the bigger boat, and then there's an island, and then there's do you know what I mean? Like
the third moon of Saturn. Yeah, it's
just
natural progression.
It's kind of just endless, and really, like, what's happening inside you. I think it's a really good thing to do and get to in a place is, what do you actually want? What do you think's going to make you happy, and head towards that. Get a line on the horizon of what you look like in 10 years' time and what you have and how happy you are, and then steer yourself now towards that. And check in from time to time, once a week, once a month. Are you still aiming towards that thing on the horizon? Like, otherwise, life will just knock you around and you'll just go with the tides,
Yeah, being deliberate.
Yeah.
Being co-creative.
Yeah.
Doing things purposefully.
But define what success looks like to you. Like, define what, if you're looking at somebody else's success and feeling less than, well, maybe you need to redefine what your success looks like.
Yeah.
Because mine is like a really nice house and all that, but it's not jets and, and massive corporations and influencing governments with my capital. That's not my definition of success. Time to myself, time with my friends and family, living in a beautiful part of the world, a nice house, like that. They're the things.
And what's the difference?
And being able to go like holidaying.
Experientially, what's the difference between those two paths in your system?
The two paths, as in the difference between
being Elon Musk,
a billionaire,
and being you,
and
like,
being myself.
Yeah.
I think one is the desire for power, because that's what vast amounts of capital allows you to do.
Yeah, that would be the desires. But I mean experientially, like if you were to live one and live the other, why would you choose one over the other without any moral judgments? Like, why do you choose this path versus choose that path?
Because I feel like I have a really good grasp on the things that actually make me happy, and the things that I enjoy, and the things that I feel are truly valuable in this world. And it's not spending all my time working on my different projects and it's definitely having a project that I feel passionate about, but it's not filling my entire day with all of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like being able to read my daughter a story and tuck her into bed at night is a form of wealth for me.
Yeah.
Being able to be home more than, I hardly ever saw my dad because that's the way things were back then. When I was a kid, he'd get up at 6, be gone by 7 when we were getting up. Maybe he's gone by 6:30, I don't know. And then he wasn't home until 5:30, and we would see him for dinner, and and
he was
awesome.
a celebrity that passed through.
Yeah, he's an awesome dad. Like, really,
yeah. But that was the time schedule you guys were on.
Exactly. Yeah, for a long time.
So I mean, that's a refinement that life's offered you. It's given you the opposite experience, so you can go, well, there's left and there's right, and I lean hard right. So any doubt about that? Zero, because I've experienced both. And the Paul that I am, which you could argue is not really a choice on a level. It's not a choice. I'm innately inclined to favour human connection over I don't know, whatever else, which would be like disconnect and individuality or something. Like part of the Paul expression is relational.
I think
You feel more like yourself adopting the path that you've chosen than you would adopting another.
Yeah.
And that's the real
that's great.
power.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Right, because in my system, I'm often looking to dissolve and disseminate between the moral posturing, the moral positioning on these things, which I don't think God has a say in. Or let's simplify, it feels way better to me to lean away from the moral positioning that's sort of subtly integrated in there, woven through it, and just lean into the like, why is this important to Paul? Because what's important to Paul is what Paul came here to do, to unfold this unique energy signature. The universe doesn't double up. It does it once.
Yeah.
It's unique. It wouldn't bother individuating into sameness. That wouldn't be individuating. So like being quiet enough to work out what really works for you is amazing. And to that end, I guess my two bobs on this question, I think it's a beautiful question and it reflects a frontier of a body of work that I admire and salute, I suppose. Because of the way we're breaking things down, because of somebody reflective enough to go like, why do I feel covetous of what's going on in somebody else's life, and why do I not like that? I forget the actual wording of the question, but something like how do I work with these comparisons I don't seem to be able to stop making?
I had a really beautiful realization while you were talking just before, and it was like, I actually just want enough money to not ever worry about money. That's actually all that's all I want. And it just kind of, yeah, I don't know what that number is, but I don't think I have to know. I think it's just, I think a lot of people would be like that, actually. I don't know what you think, but I feel like there would be a lot of people who are like, if I had enough money, then I don't really worry about money.
It implies the freedom layer of what we were talking about before. Yeah. Money really is interchangeable with freedom, and I feel an absence of freedom and I covet more freedom. So in that respect, it just like
interacts.
It was so cool to have a great dad. I wish he was around more. And now here you are, not from a moral standpoint.
Yeah.
But feeling authentic and stepping into being a more available dad in a scheduling sense and going, yes. Maybe there's work needs to be done in other areas, but this feels aligned. This feels good.
Yeah.
And so finding ways to be freer, seeing the real value in wealth. Like, for example, me working all the overtime, I didn't feel free. I felt
because the sacrifice was too, or what you were giving was too much for what you were getting back.
It wasn't
perhaps.
Abundance.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I think that's powerful. You talk about an insight in real time, not just like, let's do more of that, but no, it happened as a consequence of this. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, like maybe the tension you're feeling this week, some clarity comes through. You're like, oh, I can see the purpose in why I've been feeling tension. If nothing else, noticing that actually it's an anxiety. I don't want to worry about money. You could see that as my true nature does not worry about money. And by worrying about money in this way and realizing that it's misaligned and it's not for me, I get to launch into freedom around money, resourcing, provisioning, and the capacity to create when I want, how I want, with whom I want.
Yeah.
Is just 10x'd in your ability to appreciate, unfold, drink in, consume, revel in, which is, again, coming right back to the primary premise that if God's got all the things, is all the things, can be, do, have all the things, you want ways to be able to appreciate what it is to be that vast. And that's a granulated, real-time version. I think it's exquisite. So the question was about comparisons and maybe how do I stop that, or how do I manage that in my life. I think see it as data collection. If we're walking across this plane of diversity, going, who am I? I'd like to work out who I am a little more today. And then you encounter something and go, oh, that's awesome. I don't have that. Someone else has that. I'd love to create more of that in my life. And just like your example just then of like, well, it's yes, to have my, one hip collapsed because one pocket's so full of gold coins would be one layer to it, but maybe more superficial. It's what the gold coins liberate in my experience of myself. As in, I don't have to get up in the morning and go do something I'm not as excited about on Wednesday as I was as Monday. I get to choose. Now, again, I hope we can pull apart the moral layer of like, hey, bro, everybody's got to work. Just go to work. What makes you special? If we pull that apart and just go, I'm actually having this dance with the universe and I'm listening as closely as I can to what actually moves me, to what it gets me up out of my seat. And what gets me up out of my seat is authentic connections with other human beings. Having more than enough of something so that I've just got, there was a thing from Jerry Hicks, who some listeners might be familiar with, from the Abraham Hicks thing. And Jerry's deal was like, I just want $1 more than I can spend.
Mm. Yeah.
And I guess depending on the listener and where they're at, can hear that in so many different ways. Mm. I just want one more intimate moment with my spouse than I need. So it's not really about needs then. Needs are really important. I'm not saying they're not. But in abundance, we're actually exceeding need. We're reveling in our infinity. God's got more of itself than it needs. It's worth adding that the deeper the connection we feel with ourselves, the more cleanly we can step into those moments and go, thanks for the data, rather than I'm a loser because I don't have this thing. This person's got an amazing relationship and I've never been able to get my shit together to bring that in and then hold it and make it really work. I'm a failure. It had something to do with this and that. And this whole self-shaming spiral that I'm familiar with, and I doubt I'm alone. But to have the steadiness of like, well, I feel connected enough to myself to sit in this moment, notice something that I'm excited about. So it becomes a moment of co-creative enthusiasm and artistry, rather than a disappointment and an absence of self-worth. But to be able to stand in it and, seize the opportunity requires just a little steadiness in your relationship with self. If I love myself in a way that gives me resources that the world can't give me, this is why we say that connection with self is the only thing that really matters. And the gifts functionally that it bestows upon us is that I can now step into the wilds. I can step into whatever weather condition presents and traverse it. I can take risks. I can dare to be myself in a world that might not validate me. I can sit in front of a microphone and we can sit around and see what comes out. And if it's shit, it's shit. If it's amazing, it's amazing. It might be something in between, but we can dare to be authentic and to not have a plan because there's more connection with self than there used to be. So I'm reminded, as in so many of these things, that traditional spirituality can be like, don't compare to yourself. Sorry, don't compare to others, only compare with yourself. I've said that on the pod, and that's true, but it's only part of the story. Another part is, can I coexist with the part of me that can't help but compare? That's steadiness. Can I coexist with being in a beautiful relationship and feeling disappointed about some parts of it? Or will I tear myself up and go, God, you're such an ingrate?
Would you ever ask the question, why are you comparing yourself, and dig underneath it?
Yeah, that's a strategy for sure.
That would be something.
To have
you need
the capacity to authentically explore that.
Yeah, but do you need external validation by things?
Yeah.
Do you feel less than if you don't have things? I mean, that's pretty grunty. That'd be pretty interesting to dig under that rock, I reckon.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is to have the self-steadiness to then explore that is the real value, because that stuff doesn't go away. You mentioned boulders before. The real key to understanding the way to work with boulders is that there is no good in complaining about the boulder or pushing against the boulder, not as a primary way of being. You can hold space for complaints and things, and that's important because we have children inside of us who are like, no! And part of the presence of the boulder is to coexist and process the tantrum. But, and tantrum may be the operative word there, But the real insight is there's going to be another boulder. You can run screaming away from this one, but there's going to be another boulder. In fact, this life is an array of boulders. And so it behooves us to see them as opportunity and to work with it. And then to have the nuance to go, well, I'm big enough and ugly enough to hold space for my own tantrum around this as well, because that's part of the boulder experience. Getting in the river makes me wet, and flowing downstream's wonderful, but I'm also wet, and part of me wants to be dry or whatever, like a 360-degree experience.
I've got a question here for you. What does emotional safety mean to you, and how do you practice it in relationships?
It's my friend Paul intuiting my inner world a little bit. Yeah. Oh man. Kind of want to meet that person and hang out for a bit. Not because I feel pity, but because I don't know. That's a very self-loving inquiry. We've touched on it. Many ways to answer this, and I'll give the one that's bubbling up inside me in real time. And we touched on it before, is the way you maintain balance in life is, I don't want to be too human. I don't want it to be too spiritual. I want to have both faculties online. And the midpoint of that is the you-ness, is the Paulness and the Luke-ness. We say the Paul and the Luke bit a lot because they're trying to humanize these stories, these concepts with there's a raw thing in the middle here that's capable of getting upset and capable of being elated and capable of being terrified and all that. So in this instance, it's like the middle, the way that I maintain emotional safety, the way that one might maintain emotional safety as they journey through their day, as they move through life. It's probably worth noting that the dominant arena that I feel light up when we talk about cultivating emotional safety is relational. We're not talking about walking too close to the edge of the waterfall. We're not talking about skydiving and forgetting to double check your chute. Do you feel that, Paulie? That this question feels like it's mostly about human relationship?
Yeah, totally.
Rather than
I think it's where most people would struggle with emotional safety, is inside the dynamic with somebody else.
I think that points to the fact that probably that we're at a really cool time in human history where EQ has become this juicy reservoir to dip into, this juicy frontier to explore. Also, we're mammals. There might be other planets where we're incarnated into lizards and more solo creatures. The sentience is elsewhere. It's a pretty Rick and Morty sci-fi kind of take. Shout out to Rick and Morty fans. Part of the mammal, part of the gig we signed up for is mammalian, is relational. It's really beautiful to me. We're relational creatures, and this concept of codependency and enmeshment has been powerful and apparent in the zeitgeist, in the dialogues around human relating in the last couple of decades. And to me,
in a positive way, in a negative way,
in an introspective,
in a way,
discovery, explorative way. But I think the fruits that it has borne, this is always happening. Like when we go and explore what consciousness is and what mindfulness is, and then we might work out there's a bit too much detachment there, and so it births another frontier, and so on and so on. So the invitation there is not to hold anything any other way but lightly, and yet be authentic with what moves you. So again, another inference of balance. It's like science. Every truth, there are no objective truths, which many scientists would dispute fervently. But how could there be if they're going to be ever updated over and over and over? Even if it's we discover a profound truth in empirical science and then we refine it by 1% with a subsequent study in 5 years' time. That's all happening all the time. This is infinity. It marches on. Coming back to the question, human relation was what we were talking about. The way to relate safely to others is to maintain contact with yourself. The way to maintain contact with yourself is to understand is to form relationship with, really. And I think it is that, which is dualistic. You need two parties for a relationship. So between ethereal parts of myself that can't be harmed and exist in perpetual curiosity and intrigue and adventure, and another part that exists in feeling and limitation and the need to rest and the need to recharge. And so those two components, and I've mentioned a few times in the pod that they're polarized to me. They're opposites in a lot of ways, and therefore there's a romanticism that's there. There's a romantic energy that's present. One holds space for the other, and the other is the muse to the space holder. That metaphor needn't work for everybody. That's totally okay. But what we're talking about is like, am I meaningfully in touch with myself? So you step into a human relating moment and go, well, am I safe? If you're anything like me, you'll notice that that is a never-ending opportunity to grow, because that relationship never stops refining, clarifying, specifying. And so for me, for the longest time, would step in with such enthusiasm to aid another. Sometimes too much, sometimes offering help they didn't even ask for. Definitely overstepping has been a part of my reflection process and integration process. Lots of hard work and long looks in the mirror and all that kind of arduous stuff. But I'm inferring a detachment from self, that I would get so lost in what this person was going through that I want to exercise the moral layer of this. It's not right or wrong to want to help or to want to walk away. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about, am I connected with myself? And what I would notice is I couldn't, when invited by a therapist, as it happened, to check in with myself in those moments and see what I'm feeling, I could not do it. With certain people in certain conditions, I couldn't feel myself. A dear friend of mine and I were talking about this the other day, and the metaphor that popped up for me from those processes was that it wasn't a weak muscle that I wanted to develop. It was the absence of the neurology to fire that muscle. So it wasn't a diminished thing, it was the complete absence of a thing. That's a much, you could say, from a psychological point of view, that's a much harder thing to correct, because it's as if it's never been practiced. It doesn't exist. It's like learning a new language from scratch as your first language. There is no preconcept to draw upon. Anyway, so really that was big for me. But I think everybody's got their version of that in some way. So coming back to how do we create emotional how do we create emotional safety? We do it through sensitivity to self. And the beauty, I think, is that sensitivity to self, when it's forged authentically, will also buffer and regulate you from caring too much about yourself. Because if you're lovingly connected to yourself, it will fill you up and make you buoyant, and you will become aware of what's going on outside of you. And to those you have the kind of relation, it's not just somebody on the street that you might say, have a great day, but it's somebody you love, your connection to your heart will connect you to their heart as well. So that's part of the balance too, is that when we're authentic with ourselves, it's natural to flow authenticity and consideration to another. And then you feel yourself walk too far out onto that ledge and then pause and go, wow, what's happened? I give myself permission to check in with myself and going, am I thriving here? Am I in relationship to myself? Am I protecting my own heart while I'm here? And it may sound like some sort of hypervigilance fear exercise, but it's not. It's just adhering. It's a beautiful dating coach that I've heard give some beautiful talks, and something he offers, I can't think, it's Matthew Hussey. Something he offers is that, I'll try to get the language right, you were gifted a human being when you were born, and it's your primary role to take care of that person. So Paul and I both have children, and there is a natural momentum in us that when dependency arrives in your life in the form of a child, that you advocate for it. It's your job to take care of that child. Well, somehow there's an even more intimate dynamic that life offers, and that's even closer to your heart than taking care of your child, and that's taking care of yourself, taking care of this person. And so how is this person doing? Only I have this bridge of intimacy towards them. And they happen to be called Luke. And so I take care of myself. This is how you create emotional safety. How else could you create emotional safety? It implies that one can be wounded. Who's going to be wounded? It'd be me. So I'm checking in with me. This might sound so simple to some that it's redundant. And if that's authentic, then I applaud you. That is a wonderful way to be in the world. But this is years and years and years and years of work, and it is not done for me. Again, I doubt that I would be completely alone in that. So we create emotional safety by assessing ourselves. Am I in relationship to myself? Is this energy, person or otherwise, let's say person, is it drawing me away from myself? Can I feel that? And yeah, it does. It implies that you've got to cultivate a relationship with self first. And it becomes amazing because if you're sitting alone in the cave in the mountains with no one around, you can forge this connection with self and maintain it. Then you step into human relationship and you go, woof, that took me right away from myself, didn't it? There are places to sit in this where you're like, wow, what incredible abundance I have in the ability to practice. Because there's so many people around with each with their own unique coordinate point vibrationally, and they activate us in all sorts of different and wonderful ways. How are we doing, Paul? Is it too abstract or
No, it's
sensical?
Good. Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. Really nice, man.
Yeah. Again, I applaud the question, and really, not willingness, because it's not about willingness. The ripeness in the being to ask that question means the answers. It's the work's done.
Yeah,
the work's done.
Yeah.
You're already there.
The fact that they're aware of it.
You're already there, and it's inevitable. So you've climbed the mountain, which is not the perfect metaphor, but you've ascended, and now there's nothing to do but slide down the other side into this relationship with yourself, where you get to practice with emotional regulation. And what you find is you forge relationships that are healthy. Because every time someone takes you away from yourself, you adjust and see if you can connect with them and maintain interface with yourself. And you'll notice that some you can't. And there can be a real chapter of adjustment and recalibration, where you are willing to raise the R-A-I-Z-E, the one where you raise a village to the ground. You are willing to level old constructs because you realize in a potent way that they're inhibiting your relationship to yourself, which is fierce. That's fierce. But what motivation for fierceness would be greater than self-love as the very epicenter of a life well lived? And so you get to lovingly, and there's no fuck you in it. Not when it's done well. Not in the end. There might be some intermittent fuck you and tantrums or whatever, but that's the boulder, as we discussed. But moving towards self, you tend to create relationships that are resonant with your relationship with yourself. Coming right back to an earlier part of like, forge a romantic relationship with yourself and let it photocopy out in front of you into the material world as your spousal relationship. The needlessness you will bring and ease you will bring to the relationship means it's unbridled. It's infinite. It's free. I heard a thing this week from Matt Kahn that's just reiterating that idea. It's I'd resonate and connect deeply with myself, and I have this experience of fullness as a whole being. And then I find someone who resonates with that. And then together we enhance that. And there's needlessness in it. And so we do this on a friendship scale or on all the human relational scales, and we build a community of this kind of connection. And I don't think I need to sell how much more amplifying that is to a life well lived, to co-creative capacities, to making the world a better place. We're embodying what it is to be self-loving and building a village around that. and not in the bumper sticker way, in the real moment to moment granulated, what brings me closer into my heart and what draws me out. What brings me closer into neuro-regulation and safety and what brings me out. And we follow that thread, and man, if your experience is anything like mine, it's as if the universe showers provisions of great people, great opportunities, great things around you, because this is what alignment looks like. And it's as if the universe is saying, like, no notes, well done. Saying, this, we've been waiting. Thanks for joining the party. Here's everything you've ever wanted. But the job's not done. We get to keep walking.
I feel like there's another aspect to that too, which is the other side of someone being emotionally safe around you. And seeing it, having respect for it, connecting in with yourself and seeing how you feel around that and what it's saying about you. And then if you're able to, acknowledging it. Acknowledging that you see it in them and that it's okay. You can applaud it if you like. You know, like I think...
I do on a feeling level. Are you saying that...
I've had an experience before where I've been interacting with a new mum, for example. And
that's cool. So a friend who's just had a baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a new mum. And there were limits around the child. I would normally be like, you know, I'll pick the kid up or I will whatever.
Yeah.
And she was super protective of the baby to a point where it's like, you know, I'd prefer you don't touch my baby. And we're friends. Like, you know, I wasn't a stranger. I'm not going and stealing children. And I remember at the very beginning feeling like when that happened, I remember feeling inside myself, I was like, oh. And there was something in me like, oh, is there something wrong with me? But it was very quickly replaced by that's awesome. That she's, you know, that she's found her emotional safe space and she's defending her and on the behalf of her child, their intimate space and what she wants for them. And I was able to, in the moment, say to her, that's awesome, you're advocating for your kid. Like, she's like, I hope you're not offended. I was like, I'm not offended at all. You know, I was taken aback at the beginning, but I have more power to you. Like, congratulations, well done for being a great mum, you know, like.
And aligning with what feels right for her.
Yeah.
And then you're supporting that.
But then you get the opportunity on the other side of it too, to like, is there anything that's triggered in me? Is there anything that's kind of like, and what is it saying about me? And because my first initial response was trigger. It was like, oh, is there something, have I done something wrong? You know, and then realizing, no, this is a person advocating for a safe emotional space for her and her child. And it was really beautiful. Like I was then able to try and encourage her to be more like that in the world. We need more parents to be advocating for their kids, but, you know, from an emotional safety point of view, it was awesome.
Yeah, gotcha.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.